Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Maverick Mindset Radio Show. I'm Adam Williams.
And I'm Ashley Muckinhaupt.
And this is the radio show for the dreamers and the doers. It's for those who are willing to step into the arena.
Some call us crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers.
We don't accept the status quo, and we leave the world better than we find it.
We approach each day with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind. We maintain irrational optimism about the future.
And this is the Maverick Mindset Radio Show, brought to you by me, Adam Williams. You know what I don't maintain irrational optimism about?
Okay.
The FCC requiring me to say that, but whatever. Joel, I promise to indemnify you for any fines that I incur, okay? I'm good for it. All right, we're back again. Another great show today. And this was a topic that I think we've been tossing around, and we're probably getting to it earlier in our I don't know, series, our lives here than we wanted to. And I think it's going to hit a little hard for everybody because we're all guilty of it, and it's going to be good. You're going to need your notebooks for this one.
Yes. I'm excited to dive into this topic, but we always get into our details, get those out of the way first. So we've kicked off every episode letting people know where they can get more information, and now people have more than just two places to
These
find
aren't just details.
every week.
These aren't just details. These are massive steps forward that we're taking because every week there's something new here.
Yes,
we're three
moving
places.
Right along.
We're three places on the internet, and we probably could have pushed it and gotten to 4 this week, but that would eliminate some of the drama for next week.
Next week.
So stay tuned. So Maverick Mindset Radio on Facebook. That's been our home since day one. It's the epicenter of everything that we have going on. We live stream, we post, we accept suggestions, feedback, cues for Q&A. And we do ask, like, if you're tuning in live, if you're listening to this, hit the share button because we need to start spreading the word of the show. We are getting so much good feedback from our listeners, and it's really encouraging. And we knew we were going to be providing value, but I don't think we realized how soon we would have such an impact on people. My phone rang. Probably 3 or 4 different people called me after last week's show. Like, dude, here's what I'm doing. Thank you so much for getting this out there. And listen, we're not like mega genius, super brilliant people. We're saying a lot of stuff that people already know, but maybe they're hearing it a different way or they're hearing it at the right time. So on Facebook, Maverick Mindset Radio. We're also at maverickmindsetradio.com, which we'll be updating shortly because we're now on the 3rd place on the internet. We are on Spotify.
Yay.
First 3 episodes already uploaded. So for everybody who couldn't listen live, or for the people that want to go back and listen, I'll be honest, I listened to myself in the shower this morning. I wanted to see how it sounded. So really excited to be on Spotify. The podcasts are up there. These episodes go up as podcasts, and there's going to be so much more content coming. But I think with the Facebook live stream, it's difficult to listen to the replays. You got to fast forward. If you close the app, things get messed up. So Spotify, we're legit now.
I know.
That. Sure, broadcasting on AM and FM is cool. And live streaming on the internet is cool, but
Jules,
now we're permanent. We're permanently on Spotify. So cool. We're so excited.
I'm going to tell everyone. Okay, so we're going to switch things up a little bit and give you the quote of the day now at the beginning of the show rather than at the end because they really set the tone for what our topics are, and it's a good lead in to what we're going to talk about.
I thought this helped frame what we're talking about today. So today's quote of the day brought to you by Rust Belt Business Law. Rust Belt Business Law exists to help business owners with the issues that keep them up at night. And I chose this quote. I saw this on the internet somewhere, and like every quote that we've used on this show, we've never attributed it to anybody. We're probably going to get sued for that too. Again, no. Don't worry, I got it covered.
Now that we're on Spotify, we got to get
okay, yeah, that's it. We got to start acting like adults now. So today's quote is, "If my friends talk to me the way that I talk to myself, they wouldn't be my friends for long."
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
So you break that down for us real quick.
Well, I mean, that's it, right? The way that we talk to ourselves, we're so critical of ourselves. And a lot of times we're not even aware of it because it's how we were raised, it's the society that we live in, and it just becomes this habit or this routine of saying really mean things to ourselves that we wouldn't say to other people. So, and actually, there's examples of like really, really, really beating yourself up for things. So this morning I was running late. I spilled my coffee. I forgot to feed the dogs. Fortunately, Penny helped me with that. And I could like really abuse myself for, man, Adam, you're such a loser. You know, like why can't
stupid.
All you have to do is wake up and shower and get to your radio show on time. And so that's like, one end of the spectrum of really just beating yourself up for mistakes. You can take it even farther and just really dig into your character flaws of like, you're always late. You're a horrible person. You're so lazy. But there's the other end of the spectrum from that too. And this is one that always, it's just so interesting to me because we don't really pay attention to the words that we use. So I'm going to give you an example. Have you ever been talking to someone and they say, oh, I have my dentist appointment Tuesday at 2 p.m. Oh, nope, I lied. It's at 3 p.m.
Yeah.
Or they say, yeah, I had that meeting with that client last Wednesday. Oh, nope, I lied. It was last Thursday.
Yep.
Those aren't lies.
Yeah.
Those are just mistakes. But when we call them lies, which is what and now this, like, I am so aware of people doing this now, and it happens in the coffee shop. I can't like tap the person on the shoulder in front of me and be, I want a coffee. No, I lied. Give me a decaf. We don't have a relationship that I can just tap a stranger on the shoulder and say, hey, you didn't lie. That was just a mistake. It's okay. Yeah. Don't beat yourself up. But if you're my friend or client, you've given me the right to do that to you. And if you're listening to this radio show, welcome. You've also given me permission. But so I think it starts with even small things like that of lies are bad. I think we can all, if you're listening to this show and you think lies are good, just like broadly speaking, maybe you shouldn't be listening to this show. Yes, I know there's exceptions to, little white lies can sometimes be okay. Santa Claus still exists. But all the kids are in school right now. It's okay. Yeah. Oh crap, but what if they listen on Spotify?
You forget we're big now.
Right. So I think just being aware of that language for starters of mistakes are okay. It's not a lie. Lies are bad.
Yeah.
And if you're saying something as simple as a mistake is a lie, you're really abusing yourself over that. So I think that was just a story that I wanted to jump into with this. So let's get into today's topic.
So we covered the quote. And we covered the difference between the lies and mistakes. And all of that brings us into what we're going to talk about today. And like you mentioned earlier, this is going to hit hard for a lot of people because it is a deep topic. And a lot of great coaches, authors, entrepreneurs have covered this topic. So it's out there. We're aware of it, but we forget how we speak to ourselves sometimes. So...
and I think that was a really, as I was preparing for this episode, I was really thinking like today's topic is really the essence of what we do on this show.
Yeah.
Like change the way that you think about things, change the way that you talk to yourself, and it will bring you more success. And I'm really excited. Make sure I talk about Michelle later because I reached out to a friend, mentor, coach of mine for some input on this episode, and she replied to me in an email and said something that really, really hit home about this show, but I'm going to tease it for now, and we'll get back to it later. So we're talking about self-talk. We're talking about how you talk to yourself. And I think for my part of preparing for this, I looked at a couple of different sources, and I know that you looked at it at a different source as well. So I have studied a lot of Bob Proctor's teaching, and he's not alive anymore, but I still have a copy of his book, You Were Born Rich, that I signed up for his program in 2020, and it's signed by Bob, and it's dated 2020, and like what a great reminder of the pandemic and the stuff we had to go through then. So a lot of this comes from Bob Proctor. A lot of this comes from experience that I've had, and then the sort of lesser known person that I drew inspiration from in this show is somebody called she's called Dr. Kristen Neff, and she wrote a book called Self-Compassion. And I'm on, I think, my third or fourth reading of it right now. As part of 75 Hard, it's my 10 pages that I'm reading every single day is coming from this book currently. And it's kind of fun because by my fourth or fifth reading of this, every line in the book will be underlined, right? Like I mark it up and I take notes. So that's who those are some of the teachings from those folks are what I want to talk through today. But then I know that you approach this from a different direction. So tell us about that.
So you know that I love David Neagle, and you introduced me to his teachings a couple years ago, and it really changed the way that I think about things, or I take it into consideration, the different, things that I've heard from him, or that, the things that I've sat in on. And he's a well-known coach and author in the personal growth industry. And he's worked alongside people like Bob Proctor. That, in fact, was his mentor, wasn't it?
Yeah. Bob was David's mentor. Yep.
He's also, Tony Robbins is a big one. Everyone knows that name. But he is the founder of the coaching company Life Is Now. And I told you, I think he should be a guest on here.
It's happening.
Yeah.
It's happening.
Because we're on Spotify? No.
Even before that. So let's detour for a second.
Yeah.
I was in Charlotte last week, and that's where David's office is. And Jackie and I have both coached with him, and you've attended a bunch of his trainings. And I've been to in-person events there. And Royce and I were going to some NASCAR teams.
Yeah.
And I'm driving around, and I'm like, man, this place looks really familiar. And then literally there was David's office. So I sent a message. I'm like, I'm stopping in.
Yeah.
So I went in and visited a couple of their team members last Friday, and they said, hey, we were just talking about you. I'm like, shut up.
I know.
What were you saying?
Yeah.
Right? Total ego boost. And they said they had a team meeting, and they were going over what their clients were doing. And this show came up after 3 episodes, and it's happening. I mean, let's not beat around the bush. David Neagle is a huge reason why you and I have this show. Right.
Yes.
Like that. He is a major inspiration.
Yes.
His podcast is called The Successful Mind. We're Maverick Mindset Radio. Like, clearly we have a lot in common. I think we teach some similar things. He teaches them very differently than I do. Yeah. And then there's other ones that I just straight up stole from him. But he's absolutely going to be a guest on this show. Yeah. And
I'm so excited.
I think here's what we're going to do. Let's put it out in the universe.
Yes. Let's manifest it.
Let's do it. Let's do a podcast swap with them.
Yeah.
And we'll get him on Zoom to tune into one of our episodes, which will be outstanding teachings. And if you're not aware of David Neagle, it's Neagle. The company is Life Is Now, the Successful Mind podcast. So we'll get him on our show, and then we'll get on his show, but we'll go down to Charlotte.
I was going to say, can we do live?
Yeah, we're going to do it in person. All right, I'm putting it out there. All right, so back to what you pulled from David's teachings for today.
Okay, so he has, or talks about confidence, and he has 3 keys to building confidence. So I wanted to touch on them because I think they pertain to the show today, and there's some great tips to try and live by. And our lack of confidence is what can attribute to the way that we talk to ourselves if we're talking to ourselves negatively. So key number 1 is know your supply or your source. So whether that be God, the universe, spirit, whatever you choose.
Whatever word you need to hear to make this work for you.
The idea here is that all things come from one source, and it comes through people. And I thought that was important because where people get this wrong is people think that what they receive comes from people and not from the one source they believe in. So we place our validation, our failures, or worth on what other people think, say, or do to us. So when we lack confidence, it's because we are afraid of what others are going to think of us. So we kind of shut things off.
You know what's funny is they aren't even thinking about us.
No, we think they're thinking about us.
They're so not. Deep in their own heads, worried about themselves that whatever we think people are thinking about us, they're not. No. Because they're having their own self-critical thoughts and their own. Look at Joel getting up close and personal with that camera. He's featuring himself on there right now. We're going to see that edited into the video when we're. Probably our 5th place on the internet will be YouTube, and that we're gonna take that B-roll. Yeah. So I
mean, it has nothing to do with other people. It really you have your source. You have to believe in that source and speak things into existence that you want for yourself, and you have the power to have all that you want, and that is what is all meant for you, and no one can stand in the way of that. There's not a person that can stand in the way of that, but we get that confused. I mean, does that make sense? Like we get that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, all right. Key number 2 is to think, speak, and act only wonderfully to yourself. And that's probably the hardest thing for
what's funny is, and this is a really good example of how David and I teach things differently. He is the type of person that uses phrases like that.
Yeah.
Think, speak, and act only wonderfully to yourself.
Right?
Like not nicely, not kindly, not positively, but wonderfully. And that just paints a completely different picture for me. Yeah. So now, easier said than done. which is
Yeah.
why we're diving deeper into this today. But yeah, that's it. Think, speak, and act only wonderfully to yourself, because you deserve it, right?
Right.
Like, that's the idea behind that. All right.
Well, but that's the thing. Most people don't think they deserve it. So that's why can't possibly say, we can say nice things to other people, but can't say it to yourself. That's for, but he says that you should never think that what you say or how you feel or what you do is bad, and to not view your circumstances as negative, because you will end up in this negative mindset and everything will go in that direction. So, little story that, my daughter was in this Broadway show for school.
On Broadway?
No, for school.
Okay.
Yeah, smaller
All right.
version.
She was in a musical.
Yes.
Okay. Maybe Broadway someday.
Yeah, maybe. Should. But so she, at the same time, they required, you would have thought it was real Broadway. Like, they had to do night practices and all this stuff. But she also has a job. So she was, working and trying to do these at the same time. And it, almost near the end of it, the director of everything was like, hey, you got to make sure that you're attending every practice to the group. Like, he put a thing out there to everybody, because your absence can impact everybody else. So immediately Bella's like, he's talking about me. It's me, because I have to work and I missed practice and everybody is mad at me. She went into this spot. She sent me a message. I'm going to quit because I'm making it hard for everybody else and they don't want me there. And they're not even talking to me, Mom. And she went into this spiral of all of these negative thoughts, and she was bad, and she was, making it worse for everybody else. And I'm like, is this the truth, or is this what you're saying? Because then what she goes into is her thoughts and what she is thinking now are impacting her actions of being very standoffish when she was there. And so then people notice that, right? So your thoughts then impact your actions, which then put out these false things you're thinking, and what you're now creating this story to be true. And it was never true to begin with. So it's like, I'm telling her, I'm like, take that. None of that's true. They're not thinking about you. They're not talking about you. You're not bad for working and trying to do both. And it was like, she was like, okay. And she goes in and she starts talking to everybody. And she's like, yeah, nobody was saying anything about me. I'm fine. And this is so great. And I'm like, yeah, you have to change. You can't be saying. She could have totally ruined the rest of that for herself.
So we, one of our core values in our business is find the truth, right?
Yes.
And we tell these stories and we make these assumptions and we make these judgments without uncovering what it really is. Jackie and I just had this last night. We did this presentation on tax strategies for the National Inventor Club. So broadcasting all over the country, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, all over the place. And I think a couple hundred people were tuned into this. And they had a whole bunch of guests. So there was somebody from the United States Patent and Trademark Office and somebody from the Small Business Administration. And oh my gosh, there's a dog walking by the studio. We need a therapy dog.
Oh yeah.
You know what else we need? We need an energy drink sponsor. So if anybody out there has connections,
we've tried them all.
We've got some preferences, but we'll have a new favorite if you want to sponsor our show. So Jackie and I did this presentation last night, and it went a little long because there were so many guests, and we were supposed to have 20 to 30 minutes because it was a really interesting, we thought, and the hosts thought, really interesting topic for these inventors on how to save money on their taxes. And by the time we were able to present, and Jackie's in Pittsburgh right now, so she's dialing in from the hotel room, and I'm at home. We had 8 minutes, and we had 27 slides to get through. So we started this presentation, and I start hustling because it started at 8 o'clock at night, and we're now pushing 9:15, 9:30. We're going over, and people are engaged and people are asking questions, but there's some pressure on this to wrap this thing up because there was another thing after us last night.
Oh, okay.
So Jackie and I talked after the event, and she's like, I did so bad. I said, what do you mean? She said, you were rushing me, and I know I was going too deep into it, and I didn't get her permission to tell this story, but it's okay. She'll want to share it because we had to really talk through this of you were rushing me, you didn't think I was doing a good job, and I was really going way too deep into the weeds, and you were trying to stop me. And I'm like, no, you killed it.
Yeah.
That we're talking about taxes and people are engaged. Can we just take a moment to appreciate that? People are excited to hear about taxes. Let that shift your paradigm a little bit. So we had to talk through this, and then she said, she was really taking it personally of I'm a horrible public speaker and I'm not going to do a good job. And then it just turned out no, Jackie, I was just rushing you because we were so far over time that we had stuff that we had to get to. I cut my stuff short too, right? So yeah, those stories that you tell yourselves about what other people are thinking, our guidance is really find the truth on what that is. So that's good. That's key number 2. What's number 3?
Okay, key number 3, which I also think is important, is surround yourself with people who support your purpose and dreams and respect how special you are. If they don't see greatness in themselves, they won't see it in you either.
Oof.
So, and that, like, I was thinking about that. Like, if you don't think that you're great, if you don't see the wonderful things about yourself, you will never truly be able to see and support somebody else in the things that they're doing. And this is big because you have spoke about, as you grow and your mindset changes and you're doing it, like you lose people and you're like, you have to separate yourself from people because they're not going where you're going. And a lot of that is if they're not supporting you and they're not building you up and they don't have this belief in how great you are, it can't be somebody that you're around. Success
can be lonely. Yeah, for sure. Yep.
Yeah. And you also don't want to be that person that's always negative. You don't want to be the person that's always down on themselves and saying negative things about themselves, because no one wants to be around that. And if they do,
so let's talk about a solution to that.
Yeah.
So I think that's actually a really good segue into the self-compassion topic.
Yeah.
So again, this is Kristen Neff, Neff. She wrote a book called Self-Compassion. I think she's got some other books. And she's got podcasts and there's information on her website. Yeah. And this has been a really good book for me, and I think the topic is good for a lot of people. And frankly, I'm going to skim the surface on this because she's a PhD. I'm not. I'm just a lawyer with an MBA. So I've learned the opposite of self-compassion through most of my life, which is why this book is so good for me. So there's this really interesting dynamic that she talks about in the book of if we think about traits that are desirable or traits that society holds in high regard. And it's different, right? These traits may be different in America than they are in Japan, right? There's different things that those different societies are going to look for. But in America, we look for people to be hardworking. Yeah. We look for people to be honest. And the reality is we tend to think of ourselves as above average in those desirable traits. Except here's the thing, half of all people are below average. Yeah. So we can't actually believe that. So for example, she mentions a study that 85% of students think they're above average when it comes to getting along with others, which is statistically impossible.
Right.
But we value getting along with others, so we're all going to think that we're really good at it.
Right.
But the flip side of that is we also have a really strong tendency towards self-criticism.
Yeah.
And so the way we may act or the things we may say out loud or say to ourselves can often be in conflict because we want to hold ourselves in high regard, but on the other hand, we're really critical. And here's what was really interesting to me is in sort of, I think it's important to understand where the problem comes from and then jump into the solution. Yeah. A lot of people, I think, will continue to focus on problems, or some people will skip over the problem and jump right to the solution. Right. But it's interesting. I think it's really good to understand the problem here is we are self-critical because it ensures our acceptance in a social group. Mm-hmm. So if I take a shot at myself and I criticize myself, I take that power away from you that you can't be critical of me. Right. And it gives me control. Really. So if I can beat you to the punch, this always reminds me of the scene in 8 Mile. What? Where Eminem gets up in like the final battle and he goes and he just tears himself apart and then he goes, now tell these people something they don't already know about me. Right?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm getting goosebumps even thinking about that scene right now. That's going to be when I get back to the office, I'm watching it.
I was going to
But if you haven't watched 8 Mile, what a great.
But yeah, like tell me something I don't already know about myself.
Right.
Like,
so if I can criticize myself, I can beat you to the punch. And we do this for control. And people tend to have a negativity bias because it does protect us, right? I have to think the bad thing. If I don't imagine that there's a bear inside of that cave, I'm probably going to get eaten by a bear, right? So I have to be on high alert for stuff like that. Yep. So that's where a lot of this comes from, and she dives a lot deeper into it in the book. But being self-critical protects us. It gives us control. Plus, for people that were raised with critical parents, it gets even deeper and it's even more difficult to overcome. So especially people with kids should be listening into this, because the criticism that you make of your children, not that they shouldn't be criticized, but there's good ways and bad ways to do it. But being overly critical can really affect their self-compassion going forward. And I don't know about you, we're about the same age, but do you remember learning a lot about self-esteem in school?
Yes.
Like we did self-esteem courses. Well, it turns out that self-esteem isn't really helpful. Like the people that already had high self-esteem continue to have high self-esteem, and the people that never had it never did. And it doesn't really have a heck of a lot of an impact on people's lives.
Right.
It turns out that self-compassion
Right.
is what brings people this peace and success and happiness. So there's 3 core components to self-compassion that she breaks down in the book. I'm gonna go through these. So just to check in, Maverick Mindset Radio, streaming live on Facebook. Soon to be this episode recorded and put up on Spotify. Streaming live. If you're listening in, if you're enjoying what we're talking about self-talk. We're about to go through the 3 core components of self-compassion. Share the show, share it with your friends.
Yes.
Great content coming out. We also just started planning out our Mother's Day and our Father's Day episodes. I don't want to spoil it. Those are going to be so good. I'm so excited about this. And we're going to have some other great stuff. Great stuff in there. So Maverick Mindset Radio, 3 core components of self-compassion. First is self-kindness. And this is comforting yourself like a good friend would, right? So this goes back to our quote of the day of how you talk to yourself, like being kind to yourself. Something as simple as, I use this phrase all the time now, something as simple as, this is really difficult right now. Like, this is really hard. I was talking about it this morning. Like, Jackie's out of town. I had to get the kids out to school. I did have help. We did have our nanny come in early and help out with that. But got to get the kids out to school, got to get the dogs out, got to get my workout, and got to get to the radio show on time. I grabbed the wrong lid for my coffee and it spilled all over the place. Like, this is really hard. Now, it's worth it. I want to get through this, but that kindness to myself, as opposed to being critical of, you slept in 7 minutes too late and now it's thrown off your whole day, idiot.
Yeah, so, well, we can remind ourselves of all of the things we did wrong. We don't recognize the things that we actually accomplished through the day. We can, without even thinking about it, you could tell somebody, how's your day? Well, this one, I almost spilled my coffee and right? You can go through all things that went wrong.
Yep.
Rarely, if you think about it, rarely when somebody asks you how your day was, do you tell them all the good things that you did all day? You
know, there's fun ways to reframe that, though. Yeah. Gratitude, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later. One of the fun ones that I heard back when Jackie was pregnant, it was either with Royce or it was with the baby that we lost before Royce. We used to listen to pregnancy podcasts, and it was these little pregnant people, little pregnant ladies who would get on the show and they'd chat through all the stuff that they're doing, which I was really engaged in these things, but they would do this thing called 2 ups and 2 downs. Like, you're pregnant. Your feet are swollen. Yeah. It's the middle of summer. You're you got stuff going on with your body that's really unfamiliar. But before we complain about that, can you say 2 good things? Yeah. And so I always love 2 ups and 2 downs. Yeah. But the idea with self-kindness is, think about how a good friend would talk to you about the situation that you're in. That's how you should talk to yourself. Yeah. You can go, if you've really got an issue that you're dealing with, you can actually do, it's called the 2-chair exercise, and literally sit in one chair and say, this is really difficult for me right now. Here's what I have going on. Stand up, sit in the other chair, and play the role of the good friend who's going, like, what would that good friend say to you? Sometimes they're going to say, all right, quit complaining and get back to it. Other times they're going to say, I get it. Like, you've got a lot going on and this is really difficult for you. So that exercise of self-kindness is component number 1 of self-compassion. Yep.
Let people understand. Like, so part of this is talking about this topic and letting people know about it, but giving you solutions to fix it. So you can't just like listen to this and be like, oh, okay, I get it. You have to do the actions. And I know it sounds silly, but like, you really have to start doing those things to retrain your mind.
So, what's really helpful here is part of that conversation. If you're again, I love that we're having an episode about talking to yourself, right? If you're having that conversation with yourself about kindness, I believe that if you're having something going on that's affecting you negatively and you have a compassionate friend having a conversation with you, one of the questions that they'll ask is, what do you need right now? Yeah. Like, what do you think would be best for you right now? So I'll give you an example. we work hard during the week, right? Like we go 110%. And when Saturday hits, I am fried. And I have Saturdays where I have 2-nap Saturdays sometimes. Like I can't move, I can't get up. I got hobbies and I got projects and I got stuff that I want to do and I don't do any of it. And I used to beat myself up like, dude, you are so lazy. You are wasting the day. That's the self-critical voice. Yeah. But I think a compassionate, kind friend would say, well, what do you need right now? And sometimes it's, I do just need to sit here and watch Bluey with Penny. Yeah. And other times it's like, no, you know what? I needed you to bring the boot and kick me in the butt and get me off this couch and get me out doing the things that I really want to be doing. Whether it's, usually it's getting up and doing something physical, like go do the workout, have a dance party with the kids, like whatever, like change your physiology, which is what Tony Robbins talks about. But it's really like, what do you need right now? Yeah. And answering that question and becoming aware of what you actually need. Sometimes it is, you know what? Sometimes I just need to sit here and cry. Yeah. Right? Like I'm just going to be sad because that's what I need right now. Great. I'm going to give you some space to do that. And then I'm going to be back to check in because eventually you've got to peel yourself up off the floor and take some action. But if that's what you need right now, go for it. And I think that's where the kindness piece comes from. Okay. The second one, and again, man, this is just something that runs through my mind all the time. The second core component of self-compassion is common humanity. We become aware that all humans at some point have the same problem that we're having. Yeah. Right? Like it's not poor me. It's becoming aware that really at some point everybody suffers in some way. And it's hard, I think, right now because we don't think of ourselves as part of humanity. We tend to be part of really like divided us versus them mentality. Yeah. Whether it's your community or your sports team or your politics or your business, it's us versus them. And the reality, like I'll use politics as an example, right? Democrats and Republicans, they're the far left and the far right. They're always taking shots at each other. But you do realize that we are all dealing with the same problems, right? Like the stuff that you think the government will come in and fix and address, we've all got similar problems. I had this was years ago, but I had a car ride to Cleveland with a local politician a couple of years ago. So we had 2 hours in the car together. And she and I are at opposite ends of the political spectrum. Yeah. And it was kind of funny because like we recognize the same problems. We just had completely different proposed solutions to them, right? But that recognizing the common humanity of everybody suffers, everybody goes through this. It feels like a little hug from the world, and I'm not a hugger. But that like even failure is part of the shared human experience, and that's one where we really beat ourselves up. And I'm really looking forward to that episode when we get there. But so you've got self-kindness, you've got common humanity, and then the third element is mindfulness. And mindfulness is a relatively new concept in my life, right? Yeah. Like started doing some meditation and getting into a little more woo-woo stuff. But basically the idea is feel your feelings. Yes. And if you're new to mindfulness and you have no exposure to it, I think there's a pretty common example. And I'm pretty sure Dr. Neff actually mentions it in her book of mindfulness is like you're sitting in a movie theater watching a really scary movie. And you get goosebumps and you're on high alert and your heart rate rises and your pupils dilate. Mindfulness is when you step back and you realize I'm just sitting in a movie theater. I'm aware that I'm feeling these things. I'm aware that I'm stressed or scared or whatever, but I'm also just here right now. Right. So allowing yourself to feel those feelings. And let's use the example of a mistake that you made, right? Some people make mistakes. And for me, if I make a big mistake, I feel it in my stomach. Yeah. Like my stomach gets upset. And really allowing myself to not just realize I'm feeling maybe a little bit of shame from my mistake, but so I've got the emotional side of it, but there's also this physical reaction to it of like my stomach gets upset. So I allow myself to feel that feeling. That's where the mindfulness piece comes from. The nice thing with this, it forces you to delay jumping into the problem solving. So rather than dismissing your feelings and just moving on to the solution, which is really my tendency in a lot of instances, allowing myself to sit in the feelings for a moment allows me to do one thing. And this is again a term that sticks with me a lot is it allows me to respond instead of reacting. Yes. You stub your toe and there's a reaction, right? Like, I stub my toe on the couch and I'm going to kick the couch to teach it a lesson. But if I can respond and just say, I should have been paying a little more attention there, and I'm going to go get some ice and move on with my day.
Yep.
So the mindfulness piece of it, if you're into meditation, you're aware of what mindfulness is, but just, again, feeling the feelings, becoming aware of what you're feeling at that moment.
And feeling the feelings, the big part of it is feeling them without judgment.
Oh, yeah. So
that's...
Yes, absolutely. Don't judge the feelings.
Right.
Because they're just feelings. They are what they are. And actually, that's a really good point, because I think that's the difference between pain and suffering. You can stub your toe and feel the pain. Like, the pain is unavoidable.
Like, that hurt.
But the suffering continues when you think, here's what should have happened and here's what actually happened. And that gap, the longer you allow that space between, your perfect outcome and reality, the wider that gap is, or the longer that you sit in it, the longer the suffering is going to continue.
Yeah.
So if you can just sort of, I don't want to say get over it, but just accept the fact that things didn't turn out the way that you wanted to, can really shorten the amount of suffering that there is. Now, again, easier said than done. Right. There's people that have had some really bad things happen in their lives. But as long as you're going to keep the distance between reality and what you hoped the outcome would be, the suffering is going to continue.
Tend to want to hurry up and get over those feelings, the bad ones. Like, if they're good feelings, we want them to last forever. But the bad ones, we want to hurry up and get them out. Like, we don't want to acknowledge them, and you don't take the time to. So you just are doing what you can to not have to feel it. What happens is they don't go away. They keep coming back over and over and over again until you allow yourself to acknowledge them, feel them, in order to get over it. So if you can't take the time to sit in it and feel it, and not for a long, you'll find you get over it a lot quicker than you think you're going to.
So, and you mentioned earlier, like, don't judge those feelings.
Yeah.
So if you become aware that you're having thoughts and feelings, you actually, that mindfulness, I'm aware that I'm feeling shame. I'm aware that I'm getting that knot in my stomach. I'm aware that my legs are getting a little bit weak and my head is starting to spin. When you find that awareness, you actually pull yourself out of the story that you were just telling yourself.
Yes.
Of, I'm such an idiot, I'm such a failure, I'm such a loser. Rather become aware, like, become mindful of the feelings that you're having. Yeah. Or the physical reaction that you're having can pull you out of that story. Yep. And we know we get into those stories.
Oh, yeah.
This happens to me when stuff breaks in my life. I get into this pit of everything is broken. Mm-hmm. Everything is broken. I got my car back 2 days ago. It's been in the garage for 6 months. So my car was broken, my plane was broken, our boiler broke at our house, and here I am going, everything in my life is broken. That's the story. Really what it was is I was starting to feel stressed out. Like, I've got this stuff, I'm making payments on the car, and I want to be flying the plane, and it would be nice if I could take a hot shower. Like, I get into this story of how my life is just falling apart, but if I say, you know what, I'm really just stressed out, this is a lot of anxiety, it's going to take time and money to fix this thing, I can get out of that story and
acknowledge the feeling, not the problem. Right? Like, give the time to the feeling, accept the feeling, and the problem eventually goes away.
Exactly. Okay, so that's Self-Compassion. Really great book. Kristen Neff. I think it's selfcompassion.org, but whatever. Google it. She's not hiding. She's easy to find. So self-kindness, recognizing that you're part of common humanity, and mindfulness are the three keys there. Okay, so this was kind of fun. Getting ready for this episode on self-talk, I reached out to a friend of mine. She's a life coach. Her name is Michelle Fraley, and she works at Miraval in Arizona, which if you don't know what Miraval is, look it up. There's one in, I think it's Tucson, there's one in Austin, and then there's one in the Berkshires. And it's a wellness resort. So it's super woo-woo. Like, the first time I went there, everybody was wearing, like, Lululemon leggings and bathrobes. And there's yoga on rocks and horse therapy.
Sounds amazing.
And it's awesome.
Really,
it's completely awesome. So Jackie and I went to the one in Tucson, which is where I met Michelle. And then last year, Jackie and I went to the one in Austin. And you do, there's a lot of physical wellness. The food is really good, and there's a lot of workout opportunities. And then there's, like, doing yoga hanging from the ceiling type stuff. A lot of sound bowls on the last one. That was pretty cool. So anyway, I met Michelle when we went to the one in Arizona, and I've actually continued to work with her since then. She's a certified life coach. She's a positive psychologist. I think that's the word, which tends to focus on like solutions and making things better. So I emailed her and I said, hey, we're doing an episode on self-talk. You got any input? And she said, well, yeah, obviously self-compassion, Kristen Neff, got it. And then she said, I asked her about mantras and affirmations, which I want to talk about a little bit. And so I said, you know, what do you think about mantras and affirmations? Because she's really good at them. Yeah. She can come up with these things on the spot. And it's like, here's the problem that I have. Help me come up with an affirmation. And she will rattle off 15 of them before I can even write down the first one. And this was so great. She said, all right, in terms of mantras and affirmations, I'm a huge fan. Why? Because our thoughts and inner dialogue create our reality, which we know that. That's why we're here. The way we talk to ourselves matters. We really want to talk to ourselves in ways that motivate and encourage us, not shame and bully us. Yep. Good. But in order for affirmations to be successful, they do need to be aligned with your core values. And we talk about our core values in the business. Also, this is so good. Also, being passive with affirmations isn't enough. Don't just say them and expect them to magically come true. Saying them is step one. Aligning your actions with them is step two.
That's a big one.
If she didn't capture the entire essence of this entire show in one paragraph in one email, I don't know what would. It was so great. Like I joke about the woo-woo stuff, and she and I both joke about it. But that's the difference is, and we're going to talk about affirmations here in a minute, but that was such a huge difference of like, you've got to couple this stuff with action. You have to do something about it.
When I was researching it, there was like a quote in there. It says, you are the conduit for making your aspirations happen. Like you are the one that has to, like, you can put it out there, you can say it, you can manifest it, you can do, but if you don't do the actions as well.
Yep. All right, so let's talk about affirmations just for a minute, because talk about self-talk. This is not an area where I'm particularly strong. Yeah. Like I've struggled to develop this habit of using affirmations, but the times when I have done it, it's been completely transformative for me. So one of the ways that I've done this is a lesson that I learned from Bob Proctor, who uses a goal card. And literally for him, he would print it out and laminate it. And he had done it for like 50 or 60 years, it seemed like. And it's I think you can even find them online, but you don't need to. It's just a card that says, I'm so happy and grateful now that, and then there's a bunch of lines where you write out whatever it is. And when I first started working with Bob, I think in 2020, I started this exercise, and I would carry the card around, and I talked about, I actually found one as I was getting ready for this episode. I wrote one in August of 2021 that said, I'm so happy and grateful now that I'm surrounded by a team that just kicks butt and motivates me. I started saying, every single day I'd read that card. In fact, I recorded it as a voice memo on my phone, and when I got in my car in the morning, I would listen to it. Right? Remember August 2021 when a bunch of people left our firm? Like 3 different people put in their notice when I left. Like I remember getting on an airplane. I had a layover in Charlotte. It's like 6:30 at night, and I got somebody's resignation letter, right? So just as I'm saying, I'm so happy and grateful now that I'm surrounded by the team that kicks butt and motivates me. That's when a bunch of people started leaving. And guess what? Those people didn't kick butt, and they didn't really motivate me. Right. So I've used, and you can put whatever you want to in there. I'm so happy and grateful now that blank. So that's one of the affirmations that was really helpful for me, because it brings it to present tense, and it can change, right? Yeah. You can do it for a couple weeks or do it for a month. So I had some examples that Michelle had actually sent me. And her advice to me was test it for 30 days. Like we wrote down probably 50 of these things, and that's too many. But you need to do this for 3 to 4 weeks, 21 to 28 days, in order to create the new belief. So she said, go and do this for 30 days. So she had some examples. My strength is greater than any struggle. How many times a day would you say that to yourself when you're dealing with a struggle? How much would that help you? Yeah. I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. That's a good one. That goes back to the suffering thing, right? You have this expectation of where you want to be, and you're not there, and you're going to suffer. Should be, but if you've got the affirmation or the mantra of, I'm exactly where I need to be. Yeah. I was built for this. It's not their job to like me. It's mine. That's a good one.
That's a really good one.
I see challenges as an opportunity to grow. I'd say I live that one pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
Positive thoughts create positive things. I am enough. I did enough. I can let go.
Yeah.
I am worthy of my own love. Or here's a good morning one. With this new day, I welcome happiness.
Yep.
Invite it into your life, right? So what I did is I wrote them on a card. I had a couple of these that I was using, and we're going to do, actually next week's episode, I think we're going to talk about habits.
Okay.
And one really good way to create good habits, one way to, you're not going to remember to do your affirmations, right? So it's called habit stacking. Tie it to something that you're already doing.
Yeah.
So when you brush your teeth in the morning, pull out your card and read your affirmations.
Yeah.
When you get in the car in the morning, when you buckle your seatbelt, that should trigger you, hopefully you wear your seatbelt. That should trigger you to pull out your card and read it, right?
Yeah.
When you sit down for lunch, pull out your card and read it. Like those things that you're already doing, tie it to this new habit that you're trying to build, and tie it to these mantras and affirmations. So if you want, go ahead.
Well, and we're giving people some options of what to do and how to do it, but not everything works the same for everybody. So there's many different, I mean, you can listen to affirmations,
Mm-hmm.
you can write affirmations, you can read affirmations. At one point, I think my house was covered in sticky notes so I could see them, and that didn't last long, so they all fell off. So that didn't work for me. But don't get discouraged. You have to find what works for you, and what works for you might not work for somebody else. But if you can, like you said, get in the habit. Once you find what does work for you, if you can get in the habit then of doing it, you will see a difference. So.
All right. So we got a few minutes left.
Yeah.
Maverick Mindset Radio Show, streaming live on Facebook. Or maybe you're listening on Spotify because we're there now.
Right.
You wanted to add a new segment to the show, and I let you do it.
Okay.
And actually, you had it lined up for last week, and we missed
I
it.
was so disappointed.
So hit us with our new segment that we're launching this week. Today is April 17th.
Yes, it is Obscure Holidays. So, all right, I missed this last week, and I was really disappointed. But we thought it would be fun each week to tell our listeners what obscure holiday it is, because these are just hilarious, and sometimes people just need to know what they should be celebrating for the day.
We always need a reason to celebrate, so here you go. All right, I gotta fix my text here so I can read this thing. All right, so these are, I don't even know you could have made these up.
I swear I didn't.
Somebody fact checked this.
It is. Right. If you look it up today,
April 17th, it's National Banana Day. You know what's funny?
I had one this morning.
It's the only thing I've eaten today. All right, we're celebrating already. It feels great. Good source of potassium. All right. So if you like bananas, go find one today and celebrate. And if you don't like bananas, all right, fine. It's also National Cheeseball Day. So I don't know. Maybe that's actually the food, or maybe that's just a friend who's a cheeseball.
Big cheeseball.
I don't. All right. Either way,
celebrate that.
Celebrate our obscure holidays today.
These are funny.
All right, so let's jump into action items, because this is what was so great about Michelle's email to me. Is like all the things that you say, super important.
Yes.
But aren't going to make any difference if you don't actually implement. And here we are. We've been talking about action items on this show from day one. So let's hear it.
Okay. So as we said before, we are only here once per week, and that gives our listeners time to go out and implement. So today's action items are brought to you by Pennywise Tax Strategies. Business owners, take a proactive approach to your taxes and take action now to reduce your tax bill next year. And to learn more, you can learn more at pennywise.tax. So.
All right. So I had some good ones today, and there's so many other notes that I wanted to get to today, but here's the first one. Just start noticing this. We talked about at the beginning of the show, something as simple as making a mistake and calling it a lie.
Yeah.
Like speak more accurately, right? But if you're gonna judge like that, here's another one. This is a really difficult one for me to hear from other people. You're sitting in a meeting and you're bouncing ideas, trying to find solutions, and somebody says, "Well, this is stupid," but start noticing when you do that. Like if you're gonna deflate what you're about to say before you even say it, this may be silly, but just say the idea, because the people hearing that first they have to bring you went negative. Now they have to bring you back to neutral so that they can lift you up to positive with maybe it actually was a good idea. So start noticing what you're saying to yourself. Again, it's back to mindfulness too. Become mindful of what you're actually saying. So start paying attention to these things and hear it in yourself and hear it in others. But that's a tough one for me to hear. Well, this is stupid, but it's not stupid. Let's hear it.
That goes back to what you're talking about, David Neagle's keys, where thinking that your worth and the things that are important come through people. And they don't. So that's why you say that, because you are worried about what everyone else is going to think or how they feel about you. So you're going to throw it out there already saying it's stupid, but that it doesn't come from them. Like, be confident and know that the things that you're saying, they are important, they do matter, and they're worth something.
Yep. Okay. Second thing, let's try some affirmations.
Yeah.
I would give it the 30 days. If you are recognizing something or some way that you're speaking negatively to yourself, flip it around, make it positive, write it on the card, and create a trigger or a habit stack to say it out loud. Like, really express it. It's going to feel really, really good. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing, and again, next week we're getting into habits, and this is going to be so good. But my first course that I took with Michelle Fraley at Miraval that I talked about was all about becoming a more positive person, which anybody who's known me for any length of time knew I needed some help with. And one of the exercises is expressing gratitude. Not feeling grateful, but actually saying it out loud. Man, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for this studio where that dog walked by earlier. That was great. Yeah. I'm so grateful for sitting here and watching people that I know go to the coffee shop and go to work down here. Like, I'm so grateful for this opportunity. And it's so different to actually say it out loud versus keeping that to myself. So find a way to express gratitude. I would do this intentionally once a day. In fact, I still am doing this intentionally once a day because it's still on my power list every day. So we're going to get into habits next week. So start noticing your self-talk, try some affirmations, and express gratitude, because that's going to shift your perspective and put you into a more positive frame of mind. And do you
think, for the trying affirmations, do you suggest that, especially someone that's just starting out, like doing it, like picking one and trying that for 30 days, or saying just an app, it could be a new one every day for 30 days, or what's the...
I'd pick a couple, 3, 4, 5 maybe, and they've got to have meaning. If you don't say it out loud and get goosebumps, it's not the right thing for you. So pick 3, 4, 5 and do it over and over and over again, more than once a day, right? So
this isn't, I'm going to say it in the morning and then I'm done. You really need to.
It'll become part of your life. Yeah, it'll become your reality.
And we'll replace the thought that the negative thought. Right. So that's the whole point, is that it ends up and that's gone.
You're reconditioning your brain for sure. So yeah. All right. We have time for this. We've made it through we have a couple minutes left in our 4th episode, and we have not yet talked about Ted Lasso. And I feel like on the self-talk episode, it's the perfect episode for it. So maybe that's action item number 4. Cancel the rest of your week and go watch Ted Lasso start to finish.
You will not be disappointed.
You know what? In fact, whether you've watched it or not, go do that. Let's all blow off the rest of this week and go watch Ted Lasso start to finish. What a great show. So I don't want to spoiler alert, but they talk about belief on this show a lot. Mm-hmm. And they hang the sign up, right? It says believe. That's it's the wallpaper on my iPad. And he says belief doesn't happen just because you hang something on a wall, all right? It comes from here, pointing to his heart, and up here, his brain, and down here, his gut. The only problem is we all got so much junk floating through us. A lot of times we end up getting in our own way. Crap like every envy or fear or shame. I don't want to mess around with that crap anymore. He didn't say crap. You know what I mean? Do you? All right. You know what I want to mess around with? The belief that I matter, regardless of what I do or don't achieve, or the belief that we all deserve to be loved, whether we've been hurt or maybe we've hurt somebody else. Or what about the belief of hope? Yeah, that's what I want to mess with. Believing that things can get better, that I can get better, that we can get better. Oh man, to believe in yourself, to believe in one another, man, that's fundamental to being alive. And look, if you can do that, each of you can truly do that, nobody can rip that apart.
Yeah.
That's Jason Sudeikis.
Yeah.
So I'm so pumped up. I'm so excited to go out and start talking more positively to myself just
Yeah.
after a day like today. And next week we're back. We're going to be talking about habits because again,
Yep.
we're talking action items. Great show.
Yep.
Hey, I believe in you. See you next week.
That was good.